Our next presenter is RicardaJahnel. Dr. RicardaJahnel was born and raised on a German dairy and beef farm. After completing her PhD at the Research Institute for Farm Animal Biology in Germany, Ricarda started as a genetic researcher and a project manager for the Center of Genetic Improvement of Livestock, or CGIL, at the University of Guelph. Here, Ricarda is managing various projects, including large-scale international collaborations, the Resilient Dairy Genome Project, and international challenge team, the Net Zero Dairy Genome Project. So let's welcome Ricarda.
Hi, everyone. I'm today talking about how to apply project management tools during grad school. So kind of managing the chaos. I don't know how you feel, but when I started grad school, I had a lot of anxiety, and project management tools actually helped me a little bit to reduce this anxiety. You heard so much about what a good project manager is, and I think today it's a little bit, you're dividing into managers and leaders, where you have leaders in your team who are looking at the big picture, at the effort of the group, and good leaders have fluctuating teams, because it's more on the group process, where managers really focus into the individual, on their process, on their skill set, and look at all of what they are achieving. And this is something you can do during grad school, right? You can really focus on yourself. So the overwhelming thing in the beginning, I feel, and kind of never stops, is that you have to talk to so many different people and include so many different people, like supervisors, collaborators, maybe sometimes also funders of your project. On the other hand, you have a lot of day-to-day tasks, right? So you want to do your research, but you also have to do coursework. You also want to maybe do TAing and learn this teaching experience. And you have your own life. Like, it's very important also to have free time, and these problems you might have in your day-to-day life will not go away just because you work longer, right? So keep in mind that grad school is a marathon and not a sprint. And you can be your individual project manager for your project. No matter if you have other project managers in your team, but just for you and your thesis, you can be your project manager. In the beginning, you have to really listen to yourself. Who am I? And I heard this example of that everyone is, or a group of people are chess pieces. Everyone moves differently, everyone has a different skill set, but everyone is very valid. So you need to know what kind of chess piece you are, right? How you're moving. Can I do research better in the morning or in the evening? Or am I a so-called pigeon, where I'm like doing some work in the morning, then take a little bit time off, and then work in the evening again? What is your favorite task? Like, everyone is like, oh, some people are very good at writing. Some people say, oh, analysis, that's exactly my thing. Keep that in mind and put that into your day. However, this fits best. Like, if you're already tired, you're not going to do your least favorite task, right? And then be aware how you can work better, like in a big group, in a small group. Some people need a little bit of noise to work really well. Some people need quiet. This is very important before you actually start scoping what you need to do and plan how you do it, because you need to be aware how you can achieve your goals the best. So in general, the concepts are linked into scoping, planning, time management, and risk management. And we're going to get into it a little bit further, where the general rule of thumb, or what I have seen when a project was scheduled or written for one PhD student, there was a 3-month phase of getting into the topic, learning about what you're doing. In the scoping period, also, you have to be aware that each study will take between 6 to 9 months, or sometimes even longer. I brought the example of my table of contents from my PhD. And in general, these are each my big milestones, right? You have always a general introduction, or here you call it chapter 1. You start with chapter 1. At my university, we didn't. Then you have your first study, your second study. No matter how far you go, how many studies each university needs you to have, it differs, right? And you have a general discussion. And each of these milestones take time. So if you're going into the scoping and then trying to channel into your planning stage, you have to come up with your goals, probably with your supervisor or mentor together. And these goals should be SMART. So they should be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. To really, when you're going into the planning stage, know when you could achieve which goal. In project management, we love a good Gantt chart. So you could apply that as well for yourself. So you have to plan, right? You have to plan for coursework. You have to plan for either for your chapters. What always a little bit, or I forgot about it a little bit, was the general introduction, the general discussion, and actually writing the thesis, which takes time and which you should think about beforehand. Probably in the scoping phase, you have a little bit written down for your general introduction. But the main goal of this probably will change once you finish your 3 chapters. So you have to go back and plan a little bit time for that and replan again. Then you could also clarify each study a little bit, like give it a preliminary title. Think about who is going to be the lead? Is it going to be solely me? There are sometimes in grad school 2 first authors. You see that, and it's split into 2 people. Who are actually my collaborators or objectives and everything. Then you want to really write down where your data is, how it is structured, because believe me, you think you know what you did 2 months ago, but if you don't write it down, probably you have forgotten it. You're like, oh my God, who was that person who did that analysis? I don't know her. Then in the planning stage, you also don't want to have the big picture, but the small picture. I put in an example how my really messy planning looked like. I did that for each semester, where I really went into the week and was like, okay, what do I want to achieve? I wrote it down with pencil to have a broad, I'm going to do that probably. And once I knew, okay, I'm going to really do it, I changed it into pen. And if I done it, I marked it in color, but that's just me, and I can work with that. You can do it however you want, and I like to color things, obviously. What I also planned into it was taking time off, for example, or presentations, because presentations take time. You need to take time off. Sometimes if we're planning, we think of ourselves of being this superhuman, and we forget that we need a break. Be generous also with the planning. Allow for buffers in that case to, if there's a backlog, then it doesn't, you have an additional week you can pull from there. So I'm from Europe, and there's soccer is the most important part of Europe. And in these professional leagues, what they do if they do a training plan is they start with the recovery time. So when they put a plan in action, they plan when the player needs to recover, and around that, they put when they are training actually. So recovery is very important. In grad school here in Canada, you don't get official vacation times, right? So orientate yourself on what's the common vacation times in Canada generally, and really schedule them in for yourself and take off these times. These days are there for a reason, because people burn out in school. In grad school, you can easily burn out. Then you want to present your work, right? So making slides, preparing for the talk, that takes time. Also, being at conferences in itself, don't schedule work at a conference, because it's exhausting to talk to people, get to know new people, listen to the talks already. Try to, I mean, we all know in reality, you do some work on the side, but really try to not do it and not overdo it. Do yourself, because otherwise you come back from that conference and you're just exhausted, and you're not as efficient as you plan to be in that week. And then you have to schedule concentrated work, where you really work on your analysis or experiments or writing, right? I feel writing takes time, because you have to get into it. You need to have like, I need to have like a specific scenario in which I'm writing. And for the concentrated work, you can do different things, like Pomodoro, time blocking, Pareto system, where the Pareto principle says like in 20% of the time you should get 80% of the work done. And Pomodoro is where you would do, in this case, you select one task, do it for 25 minutes, have a 5-minute break, repeat that for 4 times, and then afterwards take a 30-minute break. I had a colleague once who really did that. He had a little bit different times, not 25 minutes. I think he was like at 35 minutes. And during lunch, he took not 30 minutes, but an hour. And in that lunch time, he slept. And you couldn't wake him up. He woke up at the exact time he chose to wake up. He was so conditioned on that. And he was so incredible productive. I was really jealous of that. So if it helps you, you can also adjust a little bit the time to your needs. And then there's risk management, right? So surprisingly, the better you're organized and the more you know when you want to do what, you're more flexible in changing what you're doing than if you're just letting the task come at you. And surprisingly, you have suddenly more time. Because you have to keep in mind, you can do the best plan ever, but the people you're collaborating with, or your supervisors, or someone that needs to read your work, when you send it off, when you have planned it, that person has other deadlines and tasks to do and doesn't have the time in that gap you scheduled for, and you thought this would like go further, right? So sometimes also the goals change in this way, but other times also goals change in the experiment you planned didn't go as it should have gone, or the data you wanted to receive never came. That could happen, or different things. So sometimes what you have planned in your studies to do, or in your chapters, that will change over time. I brought my example because when I was a PhD student, when I started, we had to do, like on a PhD they present what we're going to do, what we're going to outlook. And I was like, okay, first I'm going to look at milk traits. Then I'm going to look at birth weights in Holstein cattle. And then I'm going to look at beef traits in gut feed. And the only, first of all, I didn't have 3, I had 4 chapters. And then the only thing that is the same is the milk traits in Holstein cattle. Birth weights, I looked at them in mice, never got beef data, never got birth weights in Holsteins. So over the times, my goals completely changed, and the research I was doing completely changed. Of course, I always was like, oh my God, if we're just contacting that person long enough, and if we're staying on that, maybe we get that data. Why is it not coming? And then at one point, we had to make a cut and be like, okay, no, we're going in a different direction now. That person will not help us anymore. And this is, I mean, this is so much anxiety when you first experience that. But talking to your supervisor and making clear deadlines helps a lot, and talking about a different plan and leaving the past in the past. There are so many tools, and I'm guessing this is recorded so you can look back at it. You can use, and I don't have all the AI tools in there yet, except for some like Quillbot. This is so nice and so good to have. Use them as your tools to make your day easier, to make them simpler. Use everything you feel comfortable with, because you have enough on your plate. If something makes your life easier, just use it. Then Mike talked about it a lot. When you're doing your grad school, you also have to do people management, because you are going to have to talk to a lot of people. No matter what you're doing, you will never work alone in this case. So I learned that interestingly, most of the times communication fails. It's very, very rare for communication to be successful, because the sender who's giving you a message has his own awareness, has his own background, comes from his or her own culture. And the receiver, on the other hand, they have their own experiences, awarenesses, their own culture they come from, and they might understand something really, really different. So to kind of get to most communication being successful, try to get as much feedback as possible. Because otherwise, there's this 4-side model where you could listen to different sides. I hope there's no Sarah in here. Sarah says, I'm not a washwoman, right? So generally, she's like, okay, the amount of people I have to wash in this hospital is too much for me, or she doesn't want to be involved in so much in this task. But someone who listens maybe on the appeal side is like, okay, does she want me to change the situation? Or if it's a relationship side where they think, oh, if did I make her upset about this? Is it my fault? Or, for example, self-disclosure, where they are like, oh, yeah, Sarah is frustrated. Nice for Sarah. And it's important with feedback and getting your feedback from the other person. You can kind of identify on which side they are listening or they are saying it to as well, or saying their message. And maybe find common ground. When you talk to people in your grad school, probably you haven't, you will have a supervisor, you will have an advisory committee, some have also senior researchers, some universities call them mentors, and you have the other grad students in your lab or in the department, which all have a little bit of different rules. It depends on group, but I looked a little bit at the rule of thumb that when you work together, a lot of people say, with your supervisor, you meet once per month. With your advisory committee, you would meet once per semester. And with your mentor or the senior researcher, you meet every 2 weeks. Some might want to do it differently. Some have different needs. This is where you listen to yourself and how you would need to meet with these people and communicate with them in the beginning. And this is also in the planning stage of these meetings take time. You need to prepare them. You need to have the meeting and you need to afterwards debrief them, right? So you need to schedule that into your time. In general, what helps to have successful meetings is if you start to write an agenda. If you be aware what you want to get out of it. Probably you will not find a solution for 7 different points in a 30-minute meeting, right? So what are the most important parts you really want to get across and you want to really solve in that time? You want to write the meetings or have a recording, ask everyone if they are fine with it. If you're recording, don't do it secretly. And you want to write down the key action points of that meeting. And afterwards, get feedback from the other person or group of people you have met with, because that is actually the first point where you're like, oh, I thought I understood it this way and not that way. I thought you said it in this way. I brought an example. I had once in a project management, I adapted from a project management course for research. So first, like, get out of the way the noise. So administrational questions. Oh my God, I need vacation, I need this, or can you sign this form? Things like this, which are just like check marks. There's this joke of saying like, oh, when did you find out your supervisor has no idea what you're doing? So remind them what you have been working on and what you're planning on in the next period of time to work on, and then go into specific questions, what you need to answer or what you need to discuss on. And then you always want to go back and check if you hit all the milestones. In this case, the person was very good with their coursework, took a little bit longer in scoping and writing the first parts. And really, the chapter 2 got really delayed. And that has an effect on the third chapter that person wants to write, right? So you need to readjust your timelines, your goals, talk to people, like talk to your supervisors, your advisory committee, how to adapt that. And remember, and it helps if you hold yourself accountable for hitting your milestones. Yeah, so generally, remember, focus on process, not perfection. Reflect often and frequently, go back, did I hit everything that I wanted to? Why did I adjust the timeline? And build sustainable habits and don't do heroic bursts. Take time off. Don't work 16 hours every day. And which I really like is done is better than perfect. So thank you so much for your time.